heavy snow on the runway was the cause of a plane crash at the Wawa airport last fall, according to the Transportation Safety Board. Good evening and thank you for joining us. The TSB has wrapped up its probe of a Thunder Airlines plane that crashed upon landing in Wawa late last year.
Fortunately, there were only minor injuries, but there was extensive damage to the plane. 2 pilots and a medic were on board the flight on the morning of November 27th. The aircraft left Thunder Bay, headed for Sault Ste. Marie, with a stop in Wawa to pick up a patient. The TSB report says a crew member called an employee with the Wawa Aerodrome and was told the runway would be plowed by 7:30 a.m. But that didn't happen, and there was 15 to 20 centimeters of snow on it when the pilot attempted to land. The plane began sliding and crashed backwards well off the runway. This webcam located next to the Wawa airport shows emergency vehicles rushing to the scene. The TSB says Thunder Airlines has changed its procedures so that flight crews need to get confirmation of a cleared runway before attempting to land.
Ontario's Special Investigations Unit is probing a crash involving a Thunder Bay police cruiser that sent a 31-year-old man to hospital with serious injuries. It happened last Thursday just after 5:30 p.m. A police officer attempted to make a traffic stop, but the driver of an SUV didn't pull over. That led to a pursuit that ended when the 2 vehicles collided near the intersection of Neebing and Broadway Avenues. The male driver was taken to hospital, while a female passenger was uninjured. The officer involved in the crash has been placed on administrative leave. Anyone with information about the crash is asked to contact the SIU.
The City of Thunder Bay is adding a pair of electric vehicles to its fleet, with the first zero-emission pickup trucks being unveiled today.
They'll be used by the Transit Division for road patrols, inspections, and supporting transit operations. Josh Morano brings us the details.
These 2 Ford Lightning pickup trucks are now part of the light vehicle fleet at Thunder Bay Transit, replacing gas-fueled half-ton trucks as part of the city's regular fleet renewal. Each truck, including the install of the chargers, costs roughly around $103,000 apiece. But Fleet Services Manager Doug Glenna says funding from higher levels of government covered nearly 3/4 of that bill, with the city's gas tax revenues covering the rest. The new vehicles are the start of a trial period to see how they perform year-round, especially in the winter.
So we did a lot of research on these trucks, and we've talked to people, both municipalities. Regina has had a Ford Lightning for over a year now. They've had decent performance in the wintertime with them. They're set up to run at 500 kilometers on average. We will get some extra battery decline with them being in the winter, but they should be able to heat just fine.
Glenna adds the switch to a completely electric fleet won't happen right away due to the costs, but says this is a step in the right direction if all goes according to plan. City Councillor Andrew Folds is chair of the Earth Care Committee, and he backed the plan, saying these vehicles will reduce carbon emissions by approximately 25 tons of CO2 annually. While there is an upfront cost, he points out they will also be saving money on, of course, gas, but also maintenance as well.
I think our city has taken on a lot of initiatives that move the city towards net zero and climate adaptation. And I think that this is one step in perhaps a bit of a marathon when it comes to the total electrification of our fleet. And that's the ultimate goal where we get.
When it comes to components such as brakes, they're very similar. So that annual brake maintenance would be done exactly the same way, but it's where we'll save is on the engine maintenance, the transmission maintenance. There just is none of that.
According to the city, each gas-powered pickup uses about 5,400 liters of fuel per year. Glenna says they're ready to begin the next step, with the electric trucks set to hit the road by early next week. Josh Morano, TBT News.
It's been 8 years since a coroner's inquest looked into the deaths of First Nation students in Thunder Bay. The 7-youth inquest resulted in 145 recommendations.
Today, current students were at the forefront of a meeting with politicians, leaders, and stakeholders, as well as families, to assess the progress made so far and the work that still needs to happen. Lee Noonan has more.
The 7-youth inquest investigated the deaths of Reggie Bushy, Curran Strang, Jordan Wabas, Kyle Morriseau, Robin Harper, Paul Panachis, and Jethro Anderson. They had all left their homes in remote First Nations to attend high school in Thunder Bay.
When you're a young teenager, you shouldn't have to leave your family. I shouldn't have had to leave my family.
Grade 12 student Robin Anishinaabe was one of the youth invited to speak at the annual 7 Youth Inquest Progress Report. At the age of 15, they moved from Deer Lake to attend Dennis Franklin Cromartie in the city. Anishinaabe says young students need to have their families nearby to make it through high school.
They can't come watch my volleyball games. They can't just give me a hug whenever I need it. So building high schools on reservations is I think it's something that needs to happen immediately.
Funding to build high schools in every NAN community was one of the 145 recommendations made by the inquest. Minister of Indigenous Services Patty Haidu says her department would support those projects.
Education is self-determined by each First Nation, and some First Nations are approaching it that way. They are looking at expanding their education offerings in their own community to include high school, to include students remote learning, for example.
Anishinaabe's classmate, Tessa Harper, has spent most of her life in the city. Her family moved from Sandy Lake when she was young. She says the city is gradually becoming a more welcoming place. Harper says students face significant barriers to good mental health and that creating an accepting environment and having good support staff around is one of the things the school is getting right.
There's a lot of people at the school who are here to support me mentally, physically, spiritually, literally anything, holistically.
Michael Tabolo, Ontario's Associate Minister of Mental Health, was one of many politicians in the room. He recognizes that keeping youth safe in the city requires proactive action.
But if we don't start early and help young people, and we heard that today here, issues of anxiety, depression, they affect all of us, whether you're Indigenous or non-Indigenous, but there are ways of treating and helping individuals and building resiliency.
Students hope the politicians here have really listened to what they've been saying and will take it back with them at every level of government. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
Local MPP Kevin Holland spoke on behalf of the Ford government at Queen's Park today regarding the recent fire in Cat Lake First Nation. The remote community's nursing station burned to the ground last weekend. Holland, who serves as parliamentary assistant to Minister Greg Rickford, responded to a question from Kiiwetinoong MPP Saul Mamakwa, who read a letter from a young boy in Cat Lake.
Dear Saul Mamakwa, MPP, I am 10 years old and I am from Cat Lake First Nation. Our health clinic burned down this past weekend. We need your help. I feel sick as I write this. Please take this seriously and get us help. Bryson Wesley, Cat Lake. To the Premier, will you make sure Bryson and Cat Lake have the access to health care that they need?
We are deeply saddened to hear about the fire at the Cat Lake Nursing Station. Minister Rickford has reached out to Cat Lake First Nation Chief Russell Wesley to reassure him and the community of Cat Lake that our government will be there to support them. We remain in contact with Cat Lake leadership as the Provincial Emergency Operations Centre carries out their work. Our government stands with the families and community members of Cat Lake and is mobilizing quickly to ensure supports are available.
March 26 has been set as the date for the next provincial budget.
The finance minister says it's all about rebuilding the economy. Siobhan Morris has the details.
Just over 2 weeks from now, the Premier and Finance Minister will take this same walk to the legislature to present the 2024 budget. Peter Bethlenfalvy will offer an update on the province's spending plans March 26th.
We've gone through with high inflation, high interest rates, weakening global economy, weakening economy here in Ontario. We're going to continue to focus on those jobs, rebuilding the economy, investing in the infrastructure.
Things like hospitals, highways, and transit. Last month, Bethlenfalvy expected the province to end the year with a $4.5 billion deficit, much higher than the whole anticipated in last year's budget. Bethlenfalvy highlights government efforts to keep taxes down, to cut fees.
Every budget is really focused on helping people and businesses and families, so yeah, you can expect that we'll continue to focus on that track that we've had in every budget that I've tabled.
Still something of a question mark is how much more cash the government is setting aside to deal with the demise of Bill 124. That cost already well into the billions. At Queen's Park, Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
The Thunder Bay District Health Unit is warning of an increased risk for Lyme disease due to an early start to the tick season. Some local residents have posted on social media saying they've already seen ticks, even though it's not even spring yet. Ken Deacon is the coordinator of the health unit's vector-borne disease program. He says the mild winter created the perfect environment for ticks to flourish. The ones shown here are a female and male wood tick, which do not carry Lyme disease. Deacon also explains the difference between a wood tick on the left and the black-legged tick on the right that does transmit Lyme disease. He says it's even more important this spring to check yourself and your pets after venturing into the bush.
What we're going to see is, because the season starts earlier, that means that the population of the black-legged tick is going to have a longer growing season. Often we have part of the population that's in the adult stage by this time of the year. I think we're going to see the second stage of the tick being able to mature into adulthood as well. There are 3 stages in the tick's life, and the second stage is the one that's smaller, harder to find, and is known to be the major transmitter of Lyme disease.
Mega's Theatre is set to debut its latest production, Tell Me on a Sunday, is a musical journey of love, ambition, and self-discovery.
The one-woman show is directed by Tom Curry. The gala opening is set for tomorrow night. Josh Morano gives us a sneak peek.
Tell Me on a Sunday delivers the story of a young English woman's adventure in America as she seeks success and romance. Performed on the Magnus stage, accompanied by a live band, this musical takes audiences on a heartfelt and relatable journey through the highs and lows of relationships, career aspirations, and personal growth. Director Tom Curry says he's been hoping to produce this play since 2011, and he's thrilled to finally see it on the big stage.
As always at Magnus, the work we do, we try to keep it singular. It's not something you're going to see anywhere else in Thunder Bay. In fact, it's a show you're not going to see anywhere else in Canada. So it's really exciting that we're able to bring this show to Thunder Bay with a full Thunder Bay band and orchestra, and the designs of Joseph Pagnon, and it's really, really cool.
And lots of our friends go there all the time.
The protagonist, known only as the girl, is played by the multi-talented Gabby Epstein. She appeared on the Magnus stage once before in 2017 for her role as the Killer Queen in We Will Rock You. Epstein says a one-woman show is not unfamiliar to her as a cabaret performer, and she's excited for the challenges that come with it.
This is very unique in that it's not my story, it's someone else's story. And so there are challenges, but there are also really wonderful parts. Like I can just dive in and not worry about being, too personal or too, specific about my life. I can really dive into a specific part that someone else wrote and give my own specific take on it.
She's had a great career, and I approached her, and I was so lucky that she said, yeah, I'd love to tackle this show, because it's music that she has encountered throughout her career and had the opportunity to sing since she was very young. So she's thrilled to be able to join us and do it here.
Tell Me on a Sunday has its gala opening on Friday evening at 7:30, and the play runs until March 30th. Josh Morano, TBT News.
And that's one show, Ryan, that I have on my list to go see. Absolutely.
Always a lot of fun going to see a Magnus play.
Oh, absolutely. Well, turning to weather now, Fiona, it was another warm and very unseasonally warm day today.
Very unseasonal. We had overnight lows that were actually closer to what we should be seeing for our daytime highs. We dropped down to 0 around midnight. And then we warmed up throughout the day to a high of 7. That was despite a lot of cloud, just a little bit of sunshine peeking out. Winds were moderate from the south, 17 to 35 kilometers per hour. Now, we had some snow in the region, but as you'll notice, it's to the west of us, it's to the north of us, it's to the east of us, but it's not on us. We basically missed out on most of the snow today. It's been a little bit to the northwest, but Thunder Bay so far has stayed away from it. There's still a chance, though, as this system continues in this northeasterly direction, that we could see that little bit of precipitation move through, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But first, let's discuss what's happening tonight or at this hour. We've got in the region some light snow that basically fell for most of the day in Red Lake, but the temperature started at -2 and then dropped all day. They're currently at -9 and a wind chill of -18. This area is still going to see some snow over the next few hours. And unfortunately, a lot of the systems that are moving through, it still has an opportunity to see more snow heading into tomorrow. Fort Frances, just a couple of brief periods of flurries at this time. They're currently under a lot of cloud and -5, wind chills of about -12. And then we hit Upsala and Armstrong, Atikokan, and you can see that shift in temperatures to the plus side. We're at 4 in Upsala, 2 in Armstrong, 5 in Greenstone, despite a lot of cloud and winds gusting 45 kilometers per hour. The mild temperatures continue along the eastern shore of Lake Superior through Wawa at 4, Sault Ste. Marie at 7, also under mostly cloudy skies. Now here in the city of Thunder Bay, remember I warned you, there's a possibility of precipitation this evening and into the midnight hours. It's a 40% chance of rain or wet flurries, and that's because temperatures are going to slip back down to much more seasonal levels, -10 and a wind chill of -15. But as we head into Friday, the sunshine returns. We've got temperatures hitting the plus side on Friday and into the weekend, and that is going to set the stage for very unseasonal March break, which could kind of put a little bit of a pallor on people's plans for their kids during the March break.
No, absolutely. I'm wondering too what winter activities really are left. Well, thank you so much, Fiona. Well, turning our attention now to national news. Tragedy coming from Ottawa, where a mass killing has left 6 people dead, 4 of which were children. We'll have more on that as your Thursday News Hour continues.
Officers entered the home to check on the safety of those inside, and that is where they began to discover the 6 victims.